Hello, you're tuning in at Xraised, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. For those who've been following our MiAI Law series, you'll remember that in our last episode, we dove into the future of intelligent systems with Laina and Dr. Bryden, a big picture, practical, down to earth discussion. And if that episode asked how the next generation should think in an AI shaped world, this time, we're asking how the next gen should work, especially when the tools designed to support them are now capable of expert level reasoning, real time analysis, and the kind of precision that used to take days, not seconds. And to talk about this, we're bringing back someone you know very well by now. Laina Chan, an award winning barrister, a prolific author, a respected voice in construction and commercial law, the founder and CEO of MiAI Law, and recently recognized as the most influential CEO 2025 Legal Tech Sydney. And she's tagging along the head of AI labs at the University of Chicago Law School and CEO of 650 HQ, who has spent years tackling one of the hardest problems in the legal world, figuring out how to make the law easier for everyday people and businesses to understand. His work blends clarity, technology, and a level of practicality you don't usually see in legal innovation, which is exactly why he's become such a leading voice in this space.
Okay.
So, hello again, Lena. Hi, Kimball. It's
Hi.
nice to have you with us here today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Welcome to X-Ray. So let me start by framing this conversation around something you've each been championing, the idea that AI can finally move the needle on access to justice, not just in theory, but in practice. And AI, as we know, has been coming for legal for maybe more than 10 or more than a decade now. But something about this moment feels different from where you both sit. What has changed technologically or culturally that finally allows AI to meaningfully move the needle on access to justice?
There was a big advancement with when generative AI systems started to come out, several years ago. AI was a little theoretical. It was hard to manage before, and now these generative systems have come out, and everybody can see the power of them. They can go onto Chat GPT or Anthropic or Gemini and see what incredible results that you can get from them. So I think like people being able to play with them and to test them themselves, I think has had pretty incredible results. Those models have gotten better and better and better over time. There was Chat GPT 3 and then 3.5 and 4 and 4.0, and now we have what's called the reasoning models, and those are like Chat GPT 5 and 5.1. And with each one of those releases, the accuracy is going up on them, and the quality of the answers are improving. And so it's a very exciting time to be working in that space.
Okay. So I bring a completely different perspective to this because in the model that we work with, that I have built, and I do the coding for all the legal reasoning, we actually do not use any of the reasoning models
Hmm.
at all. So I have coded in the legal reasoning into the back end, and that my developers have incorporated into the system. And I spend a lot of my time context engineering to make sure that the language models that we're using for retrievals and linguistic generation are not allowed to rely on its own pre-training or to escape its guardrails. But I think the point is that to Miles's question, Miles, you wanted to know how the technological advances was going to help us increase access to justice,
Yeah. Mhm.
right? Well, I don't think that the Chat GPT or any of the openly freely available language models are actually fit for purpose for using law, but it has allowed us to what we have done in Australia anyway, and we're about to start work on our US law, is to build perfect memory, which is why I first started. So our model anyway for Australia knows all of the answers for Australian law. But from my point of view, you really need to be a lawyer to be able to unlock the secrets in the model. But obviously, I think that the beauty of having AI and legal AI research models is that it can decrease the cost of access to justice. So that if law firms, for example, are prepared to adopt this technology, and in Australia they're resistant, if they're prepared to adopt this technology, then it can make unprofitable work profitable. And the law firms who do all of the big law firms in Australia do pro bono work. And so if they adopt my AI law, for example, and use us, then it will really accelerate the work that has to be done for each client. It will improve the quality of the work that is outputted by these lawyers. And in that way, it can make unprofitable work profitable, and maybe they can do more matters for these clients than if they didn't have this technology. But I have found that when I've spoken to lawyers in regional New South Wales, which is where I'm from, and we've had legal aid providers attend the conference, and I've given them free access to my AI law. They haven't taken me up on that offer. It's free. I've given it to them for free. Go, come on, have a play with it, have a play. And they won't do it. So I'm just thinking, at least in Australia, that maybe increasing access to justice will have to come from the big firms who have the pro bono programs, who adopt our software, and it is the mid-level firms that are piloting our program, and they're the most open to it. That in that way we can hopefully increase the access to justice. I'm not selling to consumers. So from my point of view anyway, that's how I see AI being able to help the uh, help the deserving. And it also will possibly, if the firms are willing to do it, and in Australia anyway, they seem to be resistant, they have to change their billing model so that,
Mhm.
maybe the cost of legal services can come down to reflect the increased productivity and efficiency in delivering the legal service. I mean, what do you think about that, Kimball?
I think, yeah, I think AI will have several effects. One again is that it'll be less expensive for attorneys potentially to do their work. They'll have to spend less hours on it. I think the thing that we've done both at 650 and at the University of Chicago is to try to build direct access tools
Mm-hmm.
for legal consumers, so that they don't have to kind of go through the traditional legal channels to get kind of basic legal work done. And so, um, part of the problem in the United States, and this may be a problem all over the world,
Mhm.
but is that like really basic legal things um, really have been routed through attorneys, but most people can't afford that
No.
because attorneys are expensive. And so, again, we've tried to build AI tools that allow them to access that information on their own. And AI is just an incredible leveler in that respect. Again, I think with these new models and how accurate they are, um, I think ChatGPT, again, with the, let's say ChatGPT 5 and the 5.1, are really like the most incredible access to justice tools that have ever been built. It can allow people to ask questions, get very detailed responses. Those responses we found, especially in the latest models, are just incredibly accurate. It makes mistakes, but I actually think probably fewer mistakes than a person makes, depending on the person. And so anyway, that's what we've tried to do at 650 and at the University of Chicago, which is to try to build some tools that people can access directly.
Can you give us some examples of those tools?
Yeah. So at the University of Chicago, we're building a tool that will help renters analyze their lease. So they can upload their lease, AI will run through it. It'll basically pull out the key terms, lay it out in kind of in a format that they can understand, raise some red flags. It'll also pull their address and it'll outline the law in that city and state. So it'll say,
Mhm.
like, here's the law about returning your deposit, or if you have an emergency repair, or how long of notice you need before you evict, or so we'll basically like tell them what the law is. The AI will also allow them to chat with their lease. And so they can say like, hey, can I have a pet in this apartment? And the AI will comb through the lease and say, actually, section X says that you need to get the landlord's permission first. And so we call the tool lease chat. And so that's the type of tool. I think that the AI is one of the incredible things about the AI is that
Mhm.
every state in the United States has different landlord tenant laws. And actually, sometimes even cities and counties do. And so the AI, you can build one tool that will help a renter in any place in the United States to know what the law is regarding their rental. And so those are the type of tools where we can put this in the hands of renters and we can help level the playing field for them. And the tool is free. We're going to offer it for free.
Mhm. So they're in simplest form or terms so that it's easily understandable by the renters.
So do you
Yeah,
just
like some of the leases are like over 100 pages long.
Yeah.
Like the chances of a renter being able to like sort through that and understand all the implications of that are low. And so again, this is something you can use AI both to let them kind of ask questions about their lease, and the AI can explain it in plain language. Again, and also maybe identify some things that are not typical. The AI actually, it turns out, is like incredible at finding things that are not standard. That's one of its strengths. It knows what is typical so well that when something is not typical, it
Mhm.
sticks out like a sore thumb to the AI.
Yeah.
And so, so if they have like an excessive fee if you lose your key, or if you're late for rent, it can flag that. It can say, hey, this is something that maybe you should consider trying to negotiate out, or just so you're aware of it, so that like, oh, if I lose my key, I'm gonna have to pay $500. Um, and so, in that way, the AI is just it's an incredible leveler when there's an information asymmetry. The landlord, especially if it's like a corporate landlord, likely knows those rules really well. They probably have a legal team. And anyway, so this puts a little more power into the hands of the renters, and they can help them navigate that a little better.
Mhm.
That's great. So are you relying upon the language model to do that work? You don't have a RAG system happening.
So interestingly, we actually began the class planning to use a RAG model. I think with the models like 3.5 and 4 and 4.0, even with ChatGPT, RAG I think was the best practice. You could like curate a data set of law,
Uh-huh.
and then you could use RAG over that data set, and it would produce better results than the base model.
Mhm.
And I think that the real thing that's changed recently is that ChatGPT 5 and 5.1, um, in our own testing, hasn't shown that it's any less accurate than a RAG'd model. So, all of that law is like it's consumed all of that law already. In those earlier models, it had a little bit of a hard time like sorting it out because people say conflicting things about it. There's something different about ChatGPT 5 um, that helps it to sort out like wrong information and to arrive at more accurate results. Basically, what the AI does is it like peer reviews itself.
Uh-huh.
It'll like create basically different entities in the question and answering process who will question different, what the answer is, poke at it, and they'll kind of go back and forth, and that kind of method has really sorted out a bunch of the accuracy issues for those models. So now, so that happened maybe a month or so before we really dug into this issue with the AI lab. We didn't see any advantage to curating a database. We used the base model of ChatGPT with some like intense prompting, like a prompting framework.
Hmm.
Um, and that's how that tool works.
Well,
Yeah.
that's really interesting because then
Uh-huh.
what we've done, we also do that. We've geared, but we don't rely on the language model. So we've geared our product to review about 100 over 130 different sorts of contracts. Obviously, one of them is a lease. but, but you can upload your contract into our system and we check it against first principles, the law, to see whether the lease, for example, will stand up in a court of law. And then we will also red flag, amber light, etc., green light the clauses that we say are problematic or not problematic. And then we analyze it against the law and we tell you why it's a problem. And we suggest alternative solutions drafting to help the lawyer get over this problem. And so, that's good. So then the lawyers who are using ours can come and they can have access to justice through yours so that they're not, at large because we can do contracts like 2,500 page contracts, etc. And we can hold the whole thing in memory and analyze the whole contract, etc. And we can do, as I said, all kinds of contracts. But it is really good that you're doing what you're doing so that the average person can have access to justice.
Hmm.
But for us, I can't I can't sell to non-lawyers. It's a condition of my insurance and also my ethical obligations that for
Hmm.
us
Yeah.
we
So
can't.
Yeah, so Lena is coming from helping lawyers make their work more efficient, while Kimball, you're on the side of the consumers or the clients of the lawyers for them to understand really what the contract is all about, etc. And all this finally catching up, I mean, tech to the complexity of legal reasoning. And it's almost like the floor has been raised, not just the ceiling, at least in the legal space. That resonates with me as someone who's worked in business and compliance. We've had tools before too, but we've never had tools that could actually think with us or support decision making in such an immediate, very immediate structured way. So it really does feel like a turning point in each side, in each space. So, Kimball, let me come to you for this one because you've spent your career studying where everyday people actually get overwhelmed when dealing with legal problems. What are the most common points where individuals hit a wall, and why do those moments matter so much in the bigger picture of access to justice?
Um, so what I'm about to say is kind of specific to the United States, but it may be the
Yeah.
case in kind of other countries. I think especially like common law countries,
Uh-huh.
um, which is that the law is it has some attributes to it that make it very difficult to find and understand. One of them is that the law is dispersed. It's in statutes and it's in cases and it's in regulatory publishing. And what a lawyer does is really kind of like pick those sources, string together a theory about what the law is, and write it in a briefing or something, let's say to a judge if you're a litigator. And you're saying like, oh, there's this court case here and there's that court case here and this statute, and so this is what the law is. But you kind of have to piece it together. It's like a little puzzle from all these different puzzle pieces. One of the other things that makes it difficult, so besides it being dispersed like that, is that in the United States there are layers of law. The federal government has law, the states have law, the counties have law, and the cities have law.
Mhm.
And so, like for employment law, for example, if you're an employer in a given city, you have to pay attention to the city you're in, the county you're in, the state you're in, and then obviously the federal government, what the federal government is saying. And so that makes it hard even for very sophisticated parties to like navigate through the law. And it makes it almost impossible for just a normal person to try to navigate it. And there's so many examples of this. One of them is so in Utah, the state where I live, there are 70,000 debt collection lawsuits a year. So that's like a company suing a person because they have not paid a debt. And 99% of those people cannot afford an attorney, which makes sense because they're
Yeah.
they're being sued because they have no money. And when you're sued in the United States, you have to respond in writing in 21 days, or you automatically lose the case. And so 80% of people do not even try to respond at all. They just
A lot.
lose. For one of our classes, we went and interviewed those people, and some of them had incredible defenses. Like they would have absolutely 100% won if they had filed any paperwork at all. And so, there's an instance where, when you're sued, the state doesn't give you like an explanation on how to respond.
No.
The rules about how to respond are like buried in this thing called the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. You'd have to like go to a legal library and pull this out, and then you'd have to figure out that it's actually like Rule 8 is how, are the pleading standards and how to respond and, are kind of like spread across, there are also some court cases that are important. It would just be impossible for you to figure out exactly how to respond. Responding is not actually that difficult once you know how to do it. Basically, in the United States, they number every paragraph, and the way that you respond is you respond to each paragraph individually. And there's only three possible responses. One is, I agree with everything in this paragraph. That means I admit.
Uh-huh.
The second response is, there is something in here that I disagree with, which is deny. And the third is, there's something in here that I don't know. Like, if someone can explain that to you, it's not that difficult. You could respond to that.
Right.
And so, one of the projects we did earlier is we automated a response to a debt collection lawsuit.
Okay.
And so we kind of walked it through with an automated tool. It wasn't AI. It was more like a what they call a software wizard, a question and answer system. And 300,000 people have used that tool to respond to debt collection cases. So again, like it's like the information is spread out. Each state and city has their different laws. But like a lot of these things, if you can get at the core of it, are not that complicated. And you can use technology systems and now AI to like get you really far down the line,
Mm-hmm.
to where you can answer a lawsuit on your own with these
Right.
tools.
You're
And
doing
that's so
really good
true.
work. He's doing really good work.
I know. And that's really true.
Yeah.
Because most people don't get stuck on the big dramatic legal issues. They get stuck on the first tiny hurdle, as you said, how they would respond. And that's often enough to stop them completely and lose the case. Unfortunately, as they say, people often don't really know what they don't know. And I've seen that exact same pattern. The biggest barrier is rarely the final decision, it's the uncertainty about the next step, what to do. And if AI, again, can clarify that for you or for them, I mean, that would be great.
Yeah, I
Right.
think like, one thing to think about is that the legal system, at least in the United States, it's really, if you look at it, it's designed for lawyers. It's
Hmm.
not designed for people. It's designed for professionals that know how to navigate the system. Now that
That's
makes
right.
it really hard because most people can't afford a lawyer.
Right.
So that's like, at the heart of this access to justice issue is that we force people into this system.
Hmm.
And really the system is designed for a professional in that system. And so, a lot of people like, they don't know how to navigate it. And so again, I think that one of the exciting things about all this technology
Yeah.
is that some of this technology is incredible at navigating those systems, at giving you the information you need to like make informed decisions, to not just default on something. And so it's really like you're saying, it's raising the floor
Hmm.
on what kind of access they have to assert their rights.
Yeah. And I remember, Lena, one of the boldest promises of my AI law is that you're giving smaller firms research capabilities that used to be reserved for the top chambers and big commercial practices. And you touched on that earlier, which you mentioned levels the competitive field, like what you've said in terms of the users or consumers. What does that shift, do you think, mean for lawyers? or maybe on both sides.
But isn't it interesting that I have found that the small firms are the ones that are actually resistant and the ones who
Right.
are not resistant, in Australia anyway,
Mm-hmm.
are the mid-level firms, the ones where we have international firms as well who have come into Australia, and we have maybe 5 tier 1 firms, maybe that's about it. And then there's the ones that are maybe fancy themselves. They're just the one band below. And that is the band that is really open to piloting, and they're piloting. And so if they get to know how to learn how to use our model properly, it will help them push into the tier 1. But surprisingly, the small firms and the barristers are the ones that are resistant, where tool was actually designed for them, because I designed it for myself, and a
Yeah.
barrister is a sole practitioner, a small law firm, so that I would have perfect memory and I would be able to, know get on top of areas of law that I'm not familiar with. And I have found that happening. So, I've mentioned this before. As a result, I'm doing this. I mean, I know international law, obviously, but there was an international succession matter that I'm now coordinating all the lawyers from Spain and Australia over. But I used our product to help me get on top of the issues surrounding succession law in Australia, because it's not my
Mm-hmm.
expertise. But it helped me get on top very quickly. I checked all my outputs, etc. So it does have the benefit. It does achieve the goal that I set out for, but it's just funny that at the moment, the very people that I designed the tool for, the small firms and the legal aid, the regional
Yeah.
lawyers, etc., they're the ones who are hesitant about using their free credits. But
Fascinating.
when they do, they will find a huge increase in mastery,
Yeah.
efficiency, increase in productivity, and will help them master the law much faster.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think what happens is that research is so expensive, and the clients that I've acted for generally do not want to pay for it. And so the firms, a lot of the work that should be done doesn't get done. And with this tool, it will speed it up. It still takes time. You can't get rid of junior lawyers, even though people seem to think you can, because when you get our research reports, which do have all of the propositions footnoted and hyperlinked with pinpoint references, you do have to check it. We've had quite a few examples of attorneys getting in trouble with the courts because they are using
Mhm.
ChatGPT and some other product. Yesterday was a case that was just handed down where a lawyer used a product, not ChatGPT, not Lexis and Westlaw, some product called Court Aid and ChatGPT, and found very, very useful cases on point, 4 of them in particular. And then she's handed her submissions into court, and the court asked, this practitioner to go and get the court the copies of the decisions. And the Supreme Court of Victoria Library couldn't find 4 of the cases because they were hallucinations. And so, at least in Australia, well, anywhere in the world, really, if you're using generative AI, because you cannot guarantee that it's not going to hallucinate, still have your duty of verification.
Yeah.
And so you still need all those junior lawyers. Is that what we have done is that we've cut out the process from going from in the past, as I've mentioned this before, because I started working for 2 Court of Appeal judges in the New South Wales Supreme Court. I did a lot of research, but it would be, doing all the grunt work to find that case on point. And then when I found the case on point, I would have to read that case on point. And I think AI cuts out all those intermediate steps, and it can help you go from your problem question to helping you quickly identify the cases on point. But then you still have to read those cases to make sure they're actually on point and how they're going to help you with your argument.
Yeah,
Right.
I do think that everything that AI creates needs to be double checked.
Yes,
There's like um that's true even, from the earlier models to the now even more accurate
yes.
models. I think everything needs to be kind of, checked and verified, but it gives you just an incredible starting place.
It does, doesn't it? It really supercharges you and increases the efficiency and productivity. But it doesn't mean that lawyers can be replaced. That's from my point of view. and that junior lawyers, that the law firms can stop hiring junior lawyers and stop fostering talent because it's just that their work will be different, not so much grunt work, but be more intelligent work,
Yeah,
checking the
when I
output.
was in law school, there was a surge in discovery, intelligent discovery systems.
Mhm.
Basically, like before a lawyer would have to like some junior lawyer would have to sort through millions of pages by hand and find the evidence they needed in the discovery that they've done in a lawsuit. And then these tools started to come out that were like so good at finding things in, needles in a haystack of discovery. And so I think
Mhm.
people thought like, oh no, there's going to be way less
No,
associate
it's
jobs.
right. Yeah.
And what really happened is that the associates stopped doing that work.
Yes.
And actually, like the job of the associate got a lot better.
That's
Right.
right.
Then it was moving to like writing motions and thinking
Mhm.
strategically and not just like power grunt work
Yes.
Yes.
into discovery. So I think a similar thing is happening here, which I think is to your point, which is that like the work will change for those junior associates.
That's
Mhm.
right.
There likely will still be work for them to do. Um, and but it maybe won't be the same work that they were doing 3 years ago.
I totally agree because all of my outputs need to be checked. And luckily, my head of research gets the job of checking all the outputs. But he has to check it all for me before I rely upon it and use it. And that takes time because you still have to, even if we give you pinpoint references, we still have to go to the case and check that the case is actually saying what we say it says. And then once you've done all that, that's just the first step. Then you have to work out how you're going to use that law to fashion your strategy to deliver your client the outcomes that they're looking for.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think that people maybe mistake what AI is good at. AI is not good at super precise work. Like if you ask AI the same question, only 10 minutes apart,
Uh-huh.
it'll answer it a different way.
Yeah,
I
Lena
think
mentioned that too.
this kind of threw me off a little bit because I had before built systems that were logic based that produced the exact same language and answer every
Mhm.
time you answered the questions in a certain way. But this is not that. It is not a precise thing. That's why everything needs to be checked. Everything that comes out of that system needs to be reviewed and checked.
Yeah.
But it's incredible at generating content. Again, it's like the best
Endless.
starting point tool that's been created, but it still needs to be checked.
Of course. And Lena has been very particular on that. She's been telling the audience that without the lawyer's experience, her tool wouldn't be as efficient as it should be. And I love how we're looking at two very different views on the benefits of AI tools, but bottom
I
line
think
is
we agree on
precision.
the benefits. It's just how we're
Yeah.
delivering it.
That's what
Mhm.
I'm saying. That's what I'm
Yes,
saying.
that's
Precision is
right.
still bottom line, the real equalizer, and the expertise contributes a lot to the output. I mean, forget about having more time or more staff. It's about having sharper and maybe faster intelligence.
All right.
I've seen that same shift play out across industries. The teams who adapt early gain an outsized advantage for sure. And it's
Yeah.
just exciting to hear that happening in the legal world. So, now, as AI tools start delivering faster, cheaper, and more accurate legal answers, Kimball, what do you think are the responsibilities these innovators and AI companies like yours, Lena, now carry, especially when their tools can influence decisions and real human consequences?
Um, I think the companies need to be clear with their consumers about what the tools are good for and what they are not.
Mhm.
Like it wouldn't be right to say like this is creating a final draft for you. We've built tools that'll draft legal documents for them. And but you shouldn't frame that as like a final draft. It needs to be framed as a first draft. It's a starting point for the company or the person, whoever is kind of drafting that thing. And that again, they need to check everything in there. Like this, the AI will get you a long ways down the road. And a lot of it will be very good, but it all needs to be checked. This is not a precision tool yet, in the use cases we're talking about. And so, we think a lot about like disclaimers. How clear and so how clear of language do you use in your disclaimers? And like what disclaimers do you make them go through? Like on this lease tool, we're forcing them to see a pop-up before they use the tool that says, this is AI. It can give you wrong answers. You need to check everything. This is
Mhm.
not an attorney. And so, and this is not, you should not consider this legal advice. And then they have to click, I understand. Right. So it's like making it clear, like this is a great starting point for you to find information to maybe draft some documents, but this is not like substitute like your own judgment, your own verification, and in some cases, it doesn't substitute using a lawyer.
Absolutely. Transparency piece is key.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really have to be clear on who they're actually catering to and what their tool actually provides. I mean, the capabilities and what it can't do. I mean, customers need clarity, reliability, and a system that they can trust. I mean, if AI is going to be a partner, like how my AI is laying it out there, it has to earn that partnership between a lawyer and my AI law. It's like hiring your team members. You have to know if you could trust the people working with you. And let's bring this home with something forward looking. If AI continues to democratize expert level guidance, which it clearly is, how do you both see the role of the lawyer evolving over the maybe next decade?
I don't see the role of the lawyer evolving. I mean,
Oh,
it's just how the lawyer gets the job done will change, but the role of the lawyer itself is still the same. And so I just feel, I think that I think what's most important, because obviously I work at the top end of the law,
mhm,
and I just feel that the billing model and the pricing model has to change.
Mm.
That the lawyers have to revisit how they are billing their clients, and these efficiency gains have to be somehow built into the pricing model and passed on to the client. Maybe we should be going to fixed price models or etc. so that you are valuing the value of the work, but not not charging the clients who can afford it anyway, because most clients won't pay for it. But there is a very small percentage of clients who are prepared to pay whatever they need to pay to get the job done.
mhm,
And maybe they're willing to do that. But for the majority of clients, 99% of clients, they don't have a blank check. And I think that it's the billing practices that have to catch up with the increase in productivity.
mhm. So what you're
I think,
saying, sorry,
oh, sorry.
Kimball.
Go ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So what you're saying is the process itself has to evolve.
The process has to evolve.
Yeah, like the
The
billing, as you
billing
said, the
processes.
billing.
The
Uh-huh.
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
that's what makes it so unaffordable.
Mm-hmm.
The cost of the lawyer, right? And the cost of the lawyer is very expensive because historically it has taken a very long time to be able to package the answer for the client. But now it's taking much faster, even with your duty of verification, even after you go through and you check everything, it is still taking much faster than doing it the old-fashioned way. And I think that those efficiency gains have to be passed on. But I'm interested to hear what Kimball thinks.
Well, I think, if I look at my own life, I will use AI for a small thing. I'll use it to get information on something or to, look up a small thing for my kids or, to create an image or something.
Yeah.
But like whenever I have a serious problem or something that I need to deal with, I don't go to AI. I go to a human.
Yeah, experts.
And like I think that like the tools that I build, I think have that limitation, which is like it can answer a question for from your lease. It can't like make you like pull you out of being dysfunctional. You know, it can't like pay your rent for you,
Uh-huh.
right? It can't make you more responsible in your choices about money. And and it can't help you sort through really super complex problems. And I think that actually, lawyers, there will always be a space for that, always for lawyers,
Uh-huh.
like to sort out the most complicated situations for people and companies who have money to do it. Like, still like a human is the best operating system
Uh-huh.
that we have to like deal with complexity and different personalities and
Judgment.
sort through those hard things. And so, again, I think like the complexity of things that the AI can handle is going up, but still the most complex problems are best addressed with a person, and I don't think that will ever change.
Yeah. And if I'm a lawyer, I'll absolutely find that comforting. Lawyers won't become less valuable, just differently valuable, I guess, and elevated, especially with all these AI tools.
The tool that we have built is capable of incredible complexity. We can answer incredibly complex questions incredibly precisely. And everything is, as I said, reference with hyperlinks to the pinpoint, with pinpoint references. But so we can do all that. And it's the mixture of experts model that you're speaking of that makes sure that every time you ask a question, you don't get an identical answer. But for us, you're still getting, generally, you'll get the same key cases. The way the answers frame might be a little bit different, but we can handle incredible complexity. But it still takes a human to work out what are the questions you have to ask the model to be able to answer the particular issue that the client is facing, because it's not a one-stop shop. You can't just ask one question and then think with that one question that'll be enough to answer, to deal with the whole issue that the client has brought to you. So it could be a series of questions. So for example, with that international succession matter that I'm dealing with, in order to get on top of all of the issues that were before me that I had to deal with, we had equity issues, private international law issues, we had so many issues that I think I had to ask the model maybe 10 to 15 questions in order, light research and deep research reports and legislation research reports to get the whole picture. And then when I got the whole picture before me, I had to sit there and work out what was the best strategy to achieve the outcome for the client. And so that job has always been the job of the lawyer. And it's just that the tools that are available now, as I've said, accelerate that. And with the people who have used our tool, they've said that it has helped them unearth lines of argument that they hadn't even thought of themselves. And so it really is helping lawyers increase their mastery of the law in a much faster way, but it still cannot remove the role of the lawyer in working out what to do with all that information.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think like, if you take like two different scenarios, let's say. One is like writing something for a judge. Like it takes a little, it takes a human to understand, I think, to like read the room. How is the judge feeling about this? What are the issues that that judge is going to care about? How is the other side going to react? There are a lot of like human judgments into that. Once you chart a course, AI can help you do a lot of things. They can help, find supporting evidence or supporting a law on a given argument that you want to make. But really, like it takes a human to like
It's experience.
use their EQ and their experience to like chart the course.
Mhm.
So that's one example. Another example is the company that we founded was just acquired, and there were like really intricate like negotiations between the parties,
Right.
and like that's a human to human game, right? That's like a lawyer from one side feeling out what the tolerance is on the other side to push back on things and vice versa on the other side as well. And again, once you chart a course, once you think like, hey, let's add this term in there, then the AI is great at creating that term. But that's actually not the most valuable thing that those lawyers were doing. The most valuable thing was that EQ experience, you know, um, person to person skill that lawyers bring. I think that what the AI is doing is it's like taking some of the execution effort out, but the judgment and the charting of the course, again, like I personally will always want an attorney to do that. Always. Like I'll want someone with sound judgment and who has expertise and experience to like help me make those decisions. So, like lawyers may spend a little less time executing on their plans because AI can speed that up, but they still have to make the plans.
Oh, that's right.
The final call.
The final call, yeah, and the strategy.
Mm-hmm. And I love where this conversation has landed because today was more than just about AI. I think it's also about responsibility, clarity, as you said earlier, fairness, and designing systems that uplift people rather than overwhelm them. And as you said earlier, the importance of EQ and judgment that only humans can do. Thank you for highlighting that. And hearing both of you speak makes me realize that tech alone doesn't create justice. People who build responsibly do. And so, thank you so much for being here, Laina and Kimball. Thank you for sharing your insights and your passion for making the law more equal and more human. I'll see you in our next episode.
Thanks, Miles.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you want to learn more or experience what these two are building, you can explore MyAI Law at myai.law and follow Lena's work on LinkedIn. And for practical, accessible legal tools for your business, visit 650.com. They're doing incredible work simplifying complex processes. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I hope you catch us again in our next one. This has been your host, Miles. Stay focused, driven, and inspired with Xraised.